Next up for the Auburn Tigers, the Missouri Tigers. And the question is, can they get it done on the ground? Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Rapport. Thank you so much for turning us up and turning us on. We are here talking a little Auburn, turning the page over to Missouri. I am here with my guy C-Dub, talking a little more Auburn football. Caesar, Auburn's got a lot of things to figure out, for sure. We could linger as much as we want to on the past, but what's in front of them is another test, another task. And just like the team needs to move on, we will move on to Missouri, the next task in the SEC for the Auburn Tigers. The question here is, can they figure out how to get two halves of good offense going in an SEC game here? See, we talked about this a little bit already, kind of off screen, but Missouri's a good defense. Like, statistically, they're doing well on defense.
Yeah, they are. I think the biggest competition to date is obviously Alabama. Handed them their first loss of the season, losing 27-24. I've been impressed, Ike, with their run defense. Again, the two opponents that are noteworthy here is Alabama, but also they played South Carolina earlier in the season. South Carolina couldn't do much against them in the run game. Alabama was able to get 126 yards total, but that was on 43 carries. I think they averaged under 3 yards per carry. Not bad at all. Actually, pretty good in that game. Bama had to earn it in other ways. But when you factor in teams like Kansas, Jayhawks, which they didn't do much on the ground, you play teams like UMass, other opponents. As impressive as South Carolina had, not South Carolina, but Missouri has been in run defense, and they're top 10 in the nation in terms of run defense, allowing a little over about 60 yards a game. I'm curious to see how they would stack up against a team like Auburn, that their offense is predicated on being able to run the football effectively. And you have a bit of a three-headed monster too with Jackson Arnold and company. So I'm curious to see how that would shake out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing when you look at this matchup between these two teams, first, well, there's a couple of things that jump out to you, right? We already talked about where they're rated nationally as far as top 10. If you look at the PFF ratings for them, they are the second highest rated rush defense in the SEC, right behind Georgia, the team that Auburn looked to be successful for one half of football, being able to run the ball. So which is why I prefaced, can they get two halves of good offense together from that? But this will be their first road game of the season, right? And that tends to impact offenses a little bit more than it does defenses. But being able to deal with here's my worry. The Jordan-Hare noise level isn't going to be what it needs to be for this game to be truly impactful. I do hope that the Auburn fans, listen, just show up and support the kids, even if you're not all bought in on the coach, the administration, whatever it is. Show up and support those young men that are putting the uniform on. But this will be the first road test for this Missouri team. And as you mentioned, though they've had P4 contests, if we're being honest, South Carolina was not at 100% offensively. Their dual threat quarterback was significantly, well, I won't say significantly, but he wasn't one himself completely yet. He was just coming back off of an injury. And Ty Simpson, though he's athletic, is not a true dual threat, right? Like, he's not a guy who's like really can hurt you with his legs. So we don't really know what they would do with that style of offense, as far as how they're going to be able to deal with the run fits with that. Even though Blake Baker's got plenty of experience with it, are they going to be able to go out there? Actually, it's not even Blake Baker anymore. I'm sorry. Blake Baker's over at LSU now. What they would be able to do defensively versus an offense that is, when doing what they're supposed to do, running the ball well.
I think what's unfortunate about this matchup and what worries me is that Georgia put it all on film. The things that Auburn does well in the run game, Georgia pretty much put together a master class on how to stop it. And if you're Missouri, you have to feel good about your opportunities to limit Auburn, because Georgia pretty much gave you the blueprint on how to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more in the second half about what Auburn can do against Missouri to have some success. But again, this is a team that is playing with a lot of confidence on that side of the ball. They usually say that defense travels, regardless of whether it's home or away. Defense usually, they do what they do. And so
Right.
my concern is for that front seven. Can Auburn get a push against those guys? And how are they going to defend the zone? The zone, the rushing zone. You know what I mean? So how are they going to do that? How are they going to limit Jackson Arnold? And I'm curious as to where Jackson Arnold will have to get some of his offense. Again, we'll talk more about that, but that's my concern, Ike, is that I don't think Auburn is sneaking up on anyone at this point in the season. That's typically we know what you're about at this point. We know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And so I'm curious to see, can Auburn line up against a talented defense like Missouri? You can feed off of your confidence, what you did against Georgia in the first half. Can you line up and do that against another team that's looking to stop you?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at again, you guys know who follow the channel. I look at PFF grades quite a bit when I start trying to stack up kind of what teams do from a grading standpoint. And I look at the PFF grades of this rush defense for Missouri, and a lot of the people who are making a lot of the stops for them in the run game are at the second and third level for them, right? So, you and I looked at the susceptibility of that Missouri defense, even though rated fairly well for giving up a lot of yards through the air. I think that's because they have linebackers and safeties that are so downhill versus the run that they have that you have an ability, if you can get into some play action stuff, to hit them for some deep shots. And if you get them out of alignment. So the question is whether or not Auburn can be the team to take advantage of that. But I think there are some opportunities for Auburn to churn out some ground game. But again, it's not going to be because Missouri hasn't been sound in that so far this season. They do seem to be like a unit that fits very well versus the run and understands what their responsibilities are. But when I watched a little bit of that Missouri versus Alabama game, I was watching them get gashed a bit, right? Like Bama was able to go and put together some good run opportunities for their team. Now, Bama's a more balanced offense. Ty Simpson's been playing really well, so maybe that factors in a bit more into what they're doing. But Auburn needs to be able to establish that run game in this game in order to do what they need to do offensively and keep it churning.
I agree, Ike. And I was, I think that's been amongst other disappointing things, Ike. I was disappointed that Auburn couldn't really throw themselves into a situation where Jeremiah Cobb and Damari Alston could just gash defenses because you're worried about what's going on with Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton, right? I was really hoping that Auburn could turn the page on what has been a pretty anemic passing attack for several years and begin to really put fear in defensive coordinators. I think it worked for about a week with Baylor. But after that, I think if you're an intelligent defensive coordinator, I'd rather Auburn beat me a few times through the air and take my chances with stopping the run. And so, to your point, Auburn has to establish themselves. And even if you're not getting 4 or 5 yards of carry, I prefer 2nd and 8 better than 2nd and 10, 2nd and 11. Yeah. Right. I prefer that. And the thing here is, I think Hugh Freeze was really committed to running the football against Georgia. He finally came out and did that. I think that is a positive, and it paid off for him for about a half. Are they going to be willing to stick to that, even if they're not getting chunk plays through on the ground, but you're inching closer to converting that first down and setting up for a 2nd or 3rd and manageable?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Hugh Freeze called it before that game during the bye week. He said we need to be comfortable with getting dirty yards, meaning it may be 2 or 3 yards. It may be, grind it out a little bit more to have the longer possessions as long as we're continuing to move in a positive direction. And I think the second half, you started to see Georgia get downhill a little bit more. And Auburn just was not able to take advantage of the fact that, okay, linebackers and safeties are downhill versus the run more. Now we need to be able to go to that second level and make intermediate throws. It just wasn't coming together and coalescing the way it needed to for that Auburn offense. This needs to be the game where you do it, because you have another team in Missouri, though, again, rated well versus the pass, is susceptible to getting gashed in the pass game. But you have to be able to play complementary football in order to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, I just think that from the quarterback to the offensive line to your skill players, if Auburn can have some success running the football, I think that passing attack opens up. And I think you feel a lot more confident as a play caller, knowing that, hey, we got the defense on its heels a bit. We're able to mix and run with pass. I thought the way they mixed in the run with the pass, they did an amazing job in the first half. But again, they were able to do that, Ike, because they were having success on the ground. So again, if you're Missouri, the game plan is simple. If you're forcing Auburn into being one-dimensional, meaning they can only move the ball except through the air, you have Auburn in a pretty vulnerable position. If you're Auburn, you're putting Missouri on their heels if you're able to get 4 and 5 yards of carry each time you're handing the ball off to Jeremiah Cobb or Damari Alston, or if Jackson Arnold keeps it.
Yeah, and I think the other big thing for Auburn is Georgia is a little less like prone to do what you saw Texas A&M and Oklahoma do, which is they are just going to load the box up and then play some sort of zone blitz scheme out. Right, they're going to line 7, 8 guys up at the line of scrimmage and then make you figure out who is actually going to be rushing and who's not, whether they're going to send 5, 6, or just 4. And have to sort through that. Georgia wasn't doing too much of that. They're willing to sit back and play coverage a little bit, which meant some of that underneath pass game, the little extended handoffs, as they call them, with the the quick slip for the tight end out into the flat. That kind of stuff works a little bit more when you have a team that's willing to play coverage. I think Missouri is going to be more willing to walk an additional safety up in the box and do some things to try to confuse the look for Auburn. This is going to be the week where you're going to have to deal with more exotic stuff. Not that Schumann's not exotic. I think that he and Kirby felt like we've got the athletes to be able to tackle in space, and we've got the ability from a physical standpoint in the middle to stand up to the run game and make you guys have to figure it out with 6, 7 in the box.
Baylor had a similar game plan, but they didn't have Georgia's athletes, right? So I've always said that's not a bad game plan if you have the athletes who can play them one-on-one like that. Right. And Georgia does. And so that's one of those game plans. To your point, Georgia doesn't have to get out of what they normally do because they have guys all over the field. It would be interesting to see how Auburn handles some of these different looks that Missouri may throw, because as we've seen up to this point, Jackson Arnold hasn't necessarily handled that well. And it's confused the O-line in terms of protection, in terms of knowing where to go with the football. I'm curious to see if they try to force the issue this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing, because while I do believe Missouri has good athletes, I'm not sure that they have the depth and rotation of athletes up front that Georgia does. So they're going to need to really be like, missed tackles is going to be a huge thing, because I think if you miss tackles in this game, if you're Missouri, it can be a killer for you, because I just don't know that you can say to yourself, man, this guy who's coming in, who's our second string nose tackle, second string defensive tackle, is just as good as this guy who is our first string guy. Right. And we can afford to rotate him off, and then he misses an assignment, misses a tackle. Now you want to play him less snaps. And if Auburn can string some possessions together, now that guy that you need to be on the field because he's the better playmaker is getting tired because he's having to play more snaps than he usually is. But again, I was encouraged to watch how Alabama was able to put some yards on this team. And before Jam Miller, I talked about this a little bit in some of our pregame. I talked about this, and I did a little watch along thing on Saturday before our game with some of our Green Name folks about how Jam Miller just makes that Bama rush attack better, because I think he sees the field better than some of the other running backs do on that team. He gets more of those like what they would call hidden yards usually in special teams, but like this was going to be stopped for a 2-yard loss, and he made a guy miss in the backfield, and he got back to the line of scrimmage, maybe only got 1 or 2 yards. But because he's not getting stopped in the backfield as often, he makes that into a play falling forward for yardage. And those other backs just aren't seeing it the same way. Right now, if I'm being honest, Jeremiah Cobb is the guy, and we'll get into Auburn a little bit here on the other half, that's seeing it, I think, better right now for Auburn offensively. And he needs to be a guy that's featured heavily in this offense. But I won't get too far into that because we definitely want to talk about that on the other side here, pay a couple of bills, and talk to you about the great folks that make sure we can continue to bring you guys this great Auburn content, whether you want it or not. We're still here doing it for you. And that's folks over there at the Rogue Shop, rogueshop.com. Listen, if you're an Auburn fan, you need to be a Rogue Shop fan as well, because I'm going to name the things that the Rogue Shop says that they provide you aid with, and you tell me if one of these things does not apply. Pain.
Oh, yeah.
Sleep.
Sleep is
I don't know
nice,
if anybody's missing any sleep, but, maybe somebody on the offensive staff for Auburn needs a little Rogue Shop to help with their sleep. Stress.
Oh, yeah.
Anxiety. Definitely. Those are all things that have some sort of herbal supplement remedy at the Rogue Shop. Head over to rogueshop.com. Use code Rapport when you do. That gets you 15% off at America's #1 online dispensary. Make sure you use that code that lets them know the folks at the War Rapport sent you. Also, if you maybe you got yourself into some financial trouble because you were betting on Auburn. I don't know why you would have done that, but listen, if you did, then maybe you need some financial counseling, an investment advisor that would tell you, listen, don't bet a bunch of money on Auburn to cover these spreads or win these games. Just don't do it. AIMA and Associates is the place that you need to go. A big welcome to the sponsors, Abels and Iannone Moore and Associates. They're an independent, fee-only registered investment advisor, which means they're fiduciaries required to always put their clients' best interests first, and they've been doing just that since 2003. Jeff Iannone, the president, and his wife, Robin, are both proud Auburn grads with 2 sons who have already graduated and one still on campus. That son that's on campus has not had an opportunity to see Auburn be good, but hopefully the glory days are on the horizon. But feel sorry for that young man. But you can tell this is an Auburn family through and through. And what I like most, no minimum balance is required, just straightforward, honest financial guidance built around you. Trust me, their approach really is different. So if you're ready for financial advice, you can call Abels, Iannone Moore and Associates at 912-777-4128 or visit AIMAINC.com. That's AIMA.inc. War Eagle. The War Rapport has been compensated by Abels, Iannone Moore and Associates for this endorsement. Abels, Iannone Moore and Associates is a registered investment advisor. Registration as an investment advisor does not apply a certain level of skill or training. The information in this advertisement is for informational purposes only and should not be considered a personalized investment advice. All investing involves risk, including the potential of loss of principal, and past performance is not indicative of future results. You know what else is not indicative of future results? First half offensive success for Auburn. Yeah. That does not mean it will happen in the second half, but hopefully, prayerfully, if the good Lord wills it, that is a theme of the past for Auburn as they move forward with the remainder of SEC play. But it doesn't really get easier versus a Missouri defense, again, that is rated in the top 10 in rush defense, which again is a thing that Auburn has done the best. I won't say they've done well because the rating isn't great considering you barely did it for 2 games. Well, really 2.5 games. You only did it a half a game versus Georgia. But you do have the ability to do it. And again, when I look at the PFF ratings in the conference, even after that performance, you know who is the number 2 run blocking offense in the SEC?
Would that be Auburn?
The Auburn Tigers, still rated number 2 in their ability to block the run so far this season. Now, Missouri is rated number 1 in the conference. So we'll talk about the Missouri offense in a later episode, maybe this week. But Auburn is number 2 in the conference in being able to block the run. And they're going to need to be able to flex that muscle against this Missouri team. Last week, you were facing the number 1 rated rush defense in the conference, and you were able to make it work for a half. Now you're facing the number 2 rated rush defense in the conference. Can you make it work for 4 quarters? What do you want to see from this Auburn offense from a rushing standpoint in this game?
You mentioned what you anticipate Missouri doing in terms of how they want to attack Auburn. Not playing them as honest, but playing people in the box, attacking downhill. That's a prime candidate to do a lot of misdirection stuff, as far as
Yes.
I'm concerned. And so that I want to see them mix it up. I don't want to see what they did against Oklahoma, where they just ran into the teeth of that defense throughout the entire game. I want them to be able to mix some runs to the outside. I want them to be able to get guys like Simmons involved in the running game, get guys like Eric Singleton freezing the second level. If you are going to run Jeremiah Cobb into the teeth of the defense, make them hesitate, make them be able to read what's going on, slow them down. That's typically how you would attack a team that's trying to play downhill, that's bringing additional guys into the box to slow down the run. I just want to see a variety and some creativity in terms of what Auburn wants to do in the run game. Take what they give them. If it's not working up the middle, run some things to the edge, to the corner. See if you can get around the corner of that defense. So try some different things out in the run game. I want to see some variety there. And again, I would like to see them truly utilize Jeremiah Cobb, because he's been a workhorse for Auburn. And he actually, in my opinion, he's emerged as the guy back there. And so I definitely want to see him get some opportunities on the ground against Missouri.
Yeah, one thing I'm looking at when I look at this rush defense for Missouri is, again, they've got a lot of team speed at the second level. I do think that if Auburn can find a way to be sound, and I think some of those guys on that offensive line are honestly just injured and they're working through some stuff. But if they could, because Jeremiah Wright is who I meant to say.
Right.
He seems like he's gone down in both of the last couple of games with some sort of injury, had to take some snaps off. They need to figure out if he's going to be ready to go, right? Because Jeremiah Wright's a big part of what they can do in that rush game specifically. He's a people mover out there.
He's
But
nasty.
if they can find ways to get second level stuff, because again, this is more of a gut feeling than I know for sure. I just feel like the types of athletes that Georgia trots out there on the defensive line, the types of athlete that Texas A&M and Oklahoma have on their defensive line are maybe not a lot better, but across the board, I think better than what Missouri has out there. And so if Auburn can sustain at the point of attack a little bit better and get those blockers up to the second level, you can see some bigger runs happening, even if they've got guys down in the box. Because if you block them up, it doesn't matter, right? Like you can, if it's a hat on a hat up front and you're able to sustain, and what Hugh Freeze has said, string a little bit longer with those runs and maintain those blocks a little bit longer, and you've got a guy that's going to get downhill and see the rush lanes that open up, you can hit some big runs because, again, they're going to have second and third level guys coming up and making those tackles. If you can get to the second level, then it becomes a foot race at the third level, and hopefully Auburn will be able to take advantage of that. And that is where I really want to see Jackson Arnold thrive in this game. Like the one or two big runs that he had, that's what happened on those runs. He was able to get up to the second level, and he's quicker than I think a lot of people, like, even though you've seen him do it, when he gets there, you're like, oh crap, he took that angle a little bit faster than I anticipated him getting there. He is really an effective runner. And so Auburn has to find a way to get him into that groove more consistently. I don't care if the drive only has 3 passes. Figure out how to manipulate those second and third level players a little bit better and get them out there in one-on-one situations where they can make a guy miss. And I think you've got some guys that can do that.
I agree. And that's exactly what I was hoping. That's exactly what I'm hoping that happens, because if you want to get Jackson Arnold, obviously they're going to try to spy him in this game. It worked effectively for Georgia in the second half. Again, they laid out a blueprint on how to stop Auburn. Missouri may have to do some things a little differently to execute that. But I think if you can get those guys out of position, get them out of their run fits, and attack uphill with Jackson Arnold and company, I would like Auburn's chances in terms of being able to move the ball to set up some play action, because obviously if you're having success with that, you can have success with some play action, because again, you're taking advantage of an aggressive attacking Missouri defense. So again, everything starts with the ability to do exactly what you stated, Ike. And I think that will begin to open up the passing attack, because I believe the confidence will start from the running game and hopefully will bleed over into the passing game, because you have some open opportunities there.
Yeah, I think the big thing for Auburn with attacking this Missouri team is going to be maybe early in the game finding a shot play out there that makes them say, "Oh crap, well maybe we need to make sure that that
Yeah,
safety isn't walked down in the box right here." They've got to find ways, that connection that they missed, I saw some people talking about, well, Jackson underthrew it to Cam Coleman. I mean, that's the shots that you expect Cam Coleman to come down with, 50-50 up in the air, you versus the DB. He's going to high point that and he's going to go get it. That changes the mindset that you have as a defense to say, man, okay, I can't play. Like maybe we don't need to leave our DB on an island out here versus him, right? Because he's going to go up here and make these kind of catches. They're going to make these kind of connections.
right.
All right, so now I need to shade a safety over the top here. Or maybe we need to play coverage a little bit more and have guys have eyes on the QB. And if you do that, the quick pass game opens up, right? They're going to drop back off 5 or 6, backpedal at the line of scrimmage. Great. We're going to run a 3-yard route, hit you with that real quick, hopefully get some, like, it's a compounding situation, but you can't leave those kind of plays out there.
I agree.
Hitting those more consistently makes the run game even more dangerous. And I think that's the thing that Auburn, not to turn the page back too much, but was missing in Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Georgia, is you missed those connections enough that they didn't respect it anymore. They're like, all right, if they connect on that, it's going to be 1 out of 5. I'll take my chances with it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do think that I agree, Ike. I with the struggles that Auburn has had in the passing game, I'm nervous about even being able to achieve that. It's almost as like Auburn has to go the other way around and just impose their will on the ground to open those things up. Because again, Auburn's tried that. They tried that again, to your point, against A&M. When we asked, where's the running attack? Auburn's trying to give them something to think about and just was not successful in doing so.
Yeah.
I just don't know if you go back to that. I just think the way Auburn has attacked,
I don't think you force it. I think you say to yourself, let's line it up. All right, great. They're playing one-on-one to the outside. We need to hit a shot right here.
Take a shot.
Yeah.
Take a shot.
We need to hit one right here just to make them remember Cam Coleman's a dude, and you better have somebody out there that can cover him. Let's just go see what this DB's got versus Cam on this one shot right here.
Let us pray. Let's hope it works.
And the other thing that I think, and Hugh Freeze actually mentioned this in the Georgia game, and this is something I've actually been saying since the Oklahoma game, Auburn needs to not abandon the exterior run game a little bit, right? I think they ran that speed sweep one time in the second half, and it got tackled early, and they were they gashed him with the very first play of the game with it for Eric Singleton. I don't think they came back to it after that negative play.
At the goal line, they had, or in the red zone in the second, I think it was the second half, they had a play.
I didn't have any red zone.
No, it was in the first. It was in the first half. It was in the first half. It was the play where they tried to do the fake reverse. They ended up kicking a field goal on this one. I think they had the reverse where Damari could have pitched it. I'm curious to see what would have happened if he had pitched that.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze mentioned that in the post game. He said it was designed to do that, and
I'm curious what you watched the film.
Like he could make the pitch.
If you watch the film, I'm curious. I'm looking forward to your watch the film to see if there was something there. If he had pitched it, what would have happened? So there's going to be certain plays like that they're been trying to set up and trying to do. So I'm curious to see if there are any more wrinkles in, to your point, the exterior, running to the exterior, running to the outside. Can they get, again, an attacking defense off balance with some of the things that again, they didn't really show it. They showed a little bit of it against Georgia. I'm curious to see if they do something like that in this game.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Jeremiah Cobb is his ability to have speed to the outside. He's run really well between the tackles, something that I question whether or not he could be an every down back doing that. He's answered that question really well so far in this season, but he still has that home run speed to the outside where if he bounces it and you're not playing solid contain on the outside, that he can go and cut it up for 15, 20 yards out there in the open field. I think that Auburn needs to give him more opportunities with that, number one. And number two, just the outside zone read for Jackson Arnold, where it's not the downhill read and then Jackson Arnold taking it outside, but the outside zone read where Jeremiah Cobb is going to take it to the outside and Jackson Arnold can hit it downhill if he keeps it. I think situations like that with a team like Missouri that has the team speed at the second and third level that's making a lot of downhill plays, if you can get that linebacker that wants to flow and get over there with a speedy Jeremiah Cobb after you've handed it off a couple of times on him breaking it to the outside, then you can hit that downhill with Jackson Arnold a little bit if you're able to block that up in the middle. So hopefully we'll see some of that stuff work effectively. Again, I'm not the guy who has to go out there and game plan. There are people that are paid way more money than me that have been sitting here looking at this film of this team and trying to figure out what they're going to do to attack them. Hopefully they come up with a solid 4-quarter plan this time for how they're going to get that done. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, C?
Yeah, I would add to the fact that you said 4 quarters. One of the things that we mentioned in the weekend tailgate, Ike, is you're going to have to put together two plans. One for the first half, the other for the second half, because you talked a lot about having a counterpunch for the opposition's counterpunch, right? If you have a team that's going to make adjustments and take certain things away, begin to anticipate how they're going to take away the very thing that you're trying to attack them with. And once they attempt to take that away, what's your next plan? Hopefully you're thinking 3 steps ahead and playing chess with the opposition, because you're setting them up to do some other things later in the game. And to me, that's a sound game plan, is that I'm planning this with the idea that they're going to stop it.
Right.
But how you intend to stop it, I'm going to have a plan for that.
And I think that when people say, I don't know that our team adjusts well, I think that that's more of the issue, right? It's not necessarily they aren't making adjustments. It's that they're actually going to different play calls as opposed to saying, what's actually the step B of this call, right? Like it really only lasts. It's really only step A is hand the ball off. If the handoff isn't there, then we're going to keep with Jackson Arnold. Or you have numbers to the outside, whether you're either going to throw this screen or you're going to throw this one-on-one situation, right? It's level 1. And if level 1 of this play doesn't work, well, great. We'll go over here to this other play in the playbook and we'll do level 1 of that play, as opposed to saying, all right, similar to what you have with that Damari Austin play where he could have made the pitch. We ran this outside zone look, but what we have is a reverse on the backside of that, so that like when you see this, it looks the exact same, but we're actually running this very different play out of this exact same look. I don't know that I've seen that level of forethought in the game prep. Not necessarily what you've shifted to in the second half, because they've changed stuff in the second half of the games, right? They went to quick game second half versus Texas A&M. It was working a little bit at the beginning of that third quarter. In this game versus Georgia, they started doing in my opinion, a little bit less quick game for some reason. I think because Georgia was playing more man-to-man on the outside and they were trying to hit them with some seam stuff. But like, they made adjustments and changes. I just don't know that they have, and this is the word I use a lot, they don't have a counterpunch, right? It's like, if my jab isn't working, then I'm going to go to try to do body work, as opposed to saying, all right, I'm going to throw the jab, and what he's been doing to counter my jab is this. I'm going to slip that, and then I'm going to hit you with this cross, or I'm going to guard against it. I'm like, it's not counterpunching. You just decided, all right, well, I'm going to change to southpaw and see if I can. I don't think that's sound offensive strategy, and that's not what great offensive game planning is. And I think that that's where Auburn is struggling right now.
So again, that's my thing, Ike. I want to see, and that to me, that's a well thought out offensive plan, is that what's working, what I intend to attack you with is bait for something else later in the game, because now you're keying on that very thing. I want to see them get to the point to where they're able to take advantage of what they see Missouri do and come out in the second half and really beat them over the head with the plan B. So I'm curious to see what they do there.
Yeah, that's one thing I talked about in the film review, and we'll get out of here, was seeing how Georgia decided to deal with the quarterback in the read option game or the RPO game. Who's going to be the guy assigned to the quarterback for the keep? And that's the guy that I want to manipulate for my next level of thing. All right, great. You're using, if we're running, to this side, we're actually using the defensive end and he's got double contain, or are they doing some sort of gap replacement with a linebacker who's going to scrape over the outside? Do they have the safety coming down? Which of these guys am I manipulating with this first level play? And this, again, is what upset me. They were doing that in the first half. Great. You guys are going to blitz in this way. We're going to slip the tight end in right behind this. Beautiful. And we're just going to throw this right here behind it. Great. You knew, but again, all of that was really just your jab, because you knew this is on film. We saw we can take advantage of that. Then when Georgia was like, all right, well, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to use our linebacker for that. We're going to go ahead, and I haven't even watched the film, so I don't know if this is actually what happened. We're going to actually now assign our safety to that, so that when you go to do that and you want to throw that little quick one out there, the safety's actually already downhill on that. Now it's not available, right? We're going to take that away from you. And then you see that on a drive and you're like, oh, all right, great. I see how you guys changed it. Next time when we go out there, instead of you running this flat route, you're going to run a wheel, right? So you're going to go to the outside and you're going to wheel this upfield because that safety's coming downhill. You should be able to get in right behind him. That is what I'm talking about on the fly. Hey, I know you normally run this route in this way. This time, let's manipulate it and run it this way. This is how they've been defending it. This is how we can catch them slipping.
Chess.
Yeah. All right, man, let's get out of here. Hopefully, again, the run game will be working and they will figure out how to counterpunch. We know what our counterpunch is because we've moved on to Missouri. We are out here doing what we need to do. And what you need to do is just continue to roll with your boys. So make sure that you like this video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, if you're listening to this on podcast, go ahead and share that content. Give us that 5-star review out there on any of the podcast platforms you're listening to us on. Subscribe to it on Pod so that you know when those podcasts are dropping. Also, check us out over at thewarreport.com. We are out of here, man. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.